Here's what the chairman of the House Ethics Committee said after Donald Trump withdrew the name of Matt Gaetz for Attorney General.
I think that this should end the discussion of whether or not the Ethics Committee should continue to move forward in this matter. He has withdrawn his nomination. He is no longer a member of Congress. And so I think that this settles any involvement that the Ethics Committee should have in any matters involving Mr. Gaetz.
Joining us now is Congressman Steve Cohen, a Democrat of Tennessee. He's a former member of the House Ethics Committee and a current member of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman Cohen, what is your reaction to that?
Well, we don't know what Matt Gaetz will do. We finally learned what he did, but we didn't know it while he did it. But we don't know what he'll do. And he could come back to the Congress. He resigned, and he said something about resigning from all future congressional elections, but it's not clear if one can resign when they haven't been sworn in, and this is something that I think the chairman of the Ethics Committee knows. So he could come back on January 3 and say, take the oath, and then he'd be a member of Congress, in which case the Ethics Committee should continue and complete the report. I think what they might not have had in the final report was the punishment that would have been appropriate, and they would have to come up with that, and I think that may be why Gaetz doesn't come back. But I think he could. So there's no reason to dismiss it. I think they need to keep it there because this man's very unpredictable.
Let's listen to what Congressman Glenn Ivey, a current member of the Ethics Committee, said.
I think it contains information that the public should have, especially if he does decide to pursue additional office, whether it's the congressional seat, a Senate seat, a gubernatorial seat, a different kind of appointment to the Trump administration. I think the public should see that information. And I know in some other prior occasions, the fact that, well, you know, the potentially material that could be relevant to larger debates about how we pursue cases, whether it's at the Ethics Committee level, the Department of Justice, there might be some light to shed on that too. I can't go into details there, but that's another consideration.
Congressman, there are thousands of jobs that Donald Trump could appoint Matt Gaetz to that do not require Senate confirmation.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Glenn that he could get appointed to a position in the Trump administration, and I think he probably will. And that could be such a job that it would be important for the public to know about this report, particularly the things, as I've discussed on the show in the past, not necessarily related to the sex, but to potential bribery or misuse of his office and use of funds improperly. Those would be relevant to be appointed to a position in the administration.
Congressman Steve Cohen, thank you very much for joining us tonight and guiding us through Ethics Committee process. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. You know, November 22, 1963. Think of John Kennedy tomorrow.
Yes, that's tomorrow. Yes. Thank you very much, Congressman. Thank you.
You're welcome.